Welcome to A More Brilliant Life. We share inspiring stories from people who hit rock bottom, faced their challenges, and transformed their lives. Learn how you can rise above expectations, discover who you are, and reclaim your future.
Don't live your life that way. I don't care if you do fail. I don't care if you lose your house. I mean, what do? Like, you have a responsibility, a core responsibility to try to take care of your family. You got kids, you got a spouse. Yes, but not at the expense of you being their father, their husband. I was not a good husband when I was a funeral director. It's not that I didn't want to be. It's not that I didn't love Brandy.
Okay, well, welcome Jeff Toomer to A More Brilliant Life podcast. This is the podcast where we talk to people who have gone through major life transitions, major pivots in their life, where they've really, reinvented themselves, kind of made a major career change, whatever it is. The biggest thing that I'm trying to push back on is this belief that is so common in our culture that once you become an adult, you're done. Like, you've picked your career, you have to stay in your lane, you can't, and then I think that what that does is it just creates so many zombies in the world. People that just, kind of are just living out their lives, and they get to the end of their life and they look back on it and like, dang it, like, why didn't I try, opening that CrossFit gym? Like, why didn't I try, like, whatever their dream may have been, and it's just one of those things where you just got to push back on that belief. And so that's what we're trying to do here. So I'm trying to highlight people's stories of transformation, of change, and I'm super curious to hear about you, Jeff. Tell me, like, I have only known you post fitness guy. And so, like, just tell me, like, take me back in time. Give me a description of what your life was like before you became the Jeff Toomer that you are today.
Yeah, it really depends how far back you want to go. We start getting into the deep side of things. You could take it all the way back to being a kid. It's one of those things where I truly believe, I love the story you're trying to tell, because I believe now that when I was young, they were preparing us for those boring lives.
Mm-hmm.
It was always, dream big, do what you want to do.
Yeah.
But let's get you in a stable job. Let's make sure you're making money so you can pay the bills and afford to have a family and this and that. And don't take chances, too many. If you fail, you're going to lose everything.
Right.
So, you fast forward and you get to the point where I bought into all that stuff. I bought into you have to look a certain way. You have to be presentable. Don't embarrass yourself. These are all things that, to get the good job and work for the person who's going to appreciate you and work you up the ladder, you got to fit all those pieces. So I did. I went to college. I actually almost graduated high school early. The only reason I stayed my senior year was for sports. My football coach kind of talked me into sticking around. So I spent my whole senior year taking college classes. When I did graduate, I went and got a degree in computer-aided drafting, and that was supposed to be the beginning of an engineering career.
Wait, computer-aided drafting? Is that what you said? Okay.
Yep. So drafting along the lines of, we could have done a multitude of things. So drafting, if you go into the architectural side of things, you could be designing the blueprints for new houses or things like that. Yep. And you're using a computer to do those things. You can generate 3D imagery. You can do 2D. It just depends on what you're looking for. Now, I got towards where I was starting to do some internships, and I had worked at actually my dad's company for the summer, and I got to do a really cool project where you're helping design this new awesome thing. Specifically, it was a dust collection system. So they made doors and countertops. They had a ton of dust because they cut all day long. And they say, well, why don't we design a system that takes that dust and feeds it back into a furnace to heat the facility, right?
Yeah.
So it was really cool. But when we finished that design, you handed it off to a project manager and you didn't get to take part in it. It's like, well, that's not what I wanted. I wanted to follow through, you know. And I kind of looked into it a little more. And long story short, I ended up taking a little break and I went back. I visited my brother who was already in school to be a funeral director. And I decided that was something I could follow as well. So I jumped on that, got into school for it, got my degree, ended up moving to Minnesota and had to take a few more classes because the degree out of Iowa was advanced standing. They kind of push it into a shorter time frame. We had to have a bachelor's of science for Minnesota. So went back and took some more courses, got a job up here and did that for a decade, you know.
Wow.
So
Wow.
just working at the funeral home, and it was this is my stable job. This is what's going to let me pay the bills. This is, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you get trapped into that, right? It's
Right.
just one of
Yeah.
those things, you know, and along there's a whole lot of other life that happened. You know, I had been married, um, had a young daughter, and within the first couple of years, we were already getting divorced. You know, one of the reasons for me moving to Mankato was because she lived on the border of Iowa. And Mankato was one of the closest bigger cities. I could get a really nice job, make that salary everybody wants, you know. So that's what put me there. Now, ended up being the best thing I could have done. You know, I met my wife, who pretty quick here is of 14 years. So
Yeah.
she completely changed my life. You know, and I don't think I would be able to have made all these changes without her. You know, she's the one who really let me realize you can look goofy, you can make mistakes, you can fail, and it's okay. You know,
Yeah.
like,
You know, what's funny is of all the people that I've interviewed, that's been a theme.
yeah,
Every single one of them has said that, thank God my spouse supported me
yep,
and helped me through this transition. And it would be interesting to hear that perspective of somebody that didn't have that
yeah.
extra support.
I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know how
Hmm.
you, like, maybe as a
Hmm.
solo, if you're only concerned about yourself, you could still pull it off. But you know, having a young daughter and then having Brandy help me out through our first years and through having a couple more kids, yeah, I just can't imagine doing it. And I can't imagine becoming the person I've become without her. Even if I'd have gone down this path, I still wouldn't have transformed the traits I needed to run a successful place like I do. The people's lives I'm trying to change, they need that flexibility of failure's okay, you know. And I tell everybody, or at least I try to, every single day in the gym, if you aren't failing, you're not trying hard enough. You know,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like
Hmm.
you have to get to a point where getting knocked on your butt, it's just a challenge to take the next step, you know.
Hmm.
And those are things
Yeah.
that I like to talk about daily because people will get frustrated with progress and all kinds of things. But then you also have to sit back and be honest with yourself, and that's that statement is, have you tried hard enough to fall on your butt today? You know, and
Yeah.
if you, and it can be fitness, it can be working on things at home, it can be goal, whatever it is. Those are all just things that you got to push that dial, because if you don't ever reach for it, you definitely won't get it. You know?
Right. Right.
Oh,
So take me back to your life in your decade in
yeah.
as a funeral director. Kind of what was your daily life like? Like what time did you get up? What time did you get home? Like kind of uh, what was the life in the day of Jeff at that time?
At the time, pretty darn standard. You know, most
Hmm.
people can attest to a job like this. Um, man, it was your run of the mill. I'm just grinding every day, feeling like at the end of the day, you just hit a reset button and you're going to do it again.
Hmm.
In the beginning,
Kind of.
yeah, you're super excited. You know, it's like that. I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning. I'm at work by 7. I'm in a full suit. That's just the style of job I had. Different suit every day. And you worked all day. And then sometimes you worked all night. You know, as a funeral director in a medium sized town like that, we're talking population of like 50 to 60,000. Um, you are not big enough where you have your own service to run the nighttime calls, but you're not so small where you'll be slow and possibly not work. So when you're on call, you work from that 7 to 5 or 7 to 4, depending on the day. You might have a visitation that night. So as soon as the day is done, you're up there setting up for your visitation and you're running that till 8, 9 o'clock at night. And then if you're on call, you might start your first call as soon as your visitation's over and you don't go home. It's
Yeah.
like I had
Yeah.
multiple times where call number one comes in at 9, 10 p.m. after a visitation. You go get that person and you do the embalming or whatever process. You get another call before you're even finished. So you're back out the door on that one. And it just, the night seemed to go that way when it would go that way.
How many hours a week would you put in, would you guess, like on average?
By the time I was in my last few years of that, we were pretty short-handed and we were averaging over 60, 65 hours a week easy.
Wow. And this
Yep.
is a salaried position,
Yes.
so yeah. Uh,
Yeah, when you break
man.
it down like that, you know,
Huh?
in my mind, I'm seeing this big number annually, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden it's like, wait a minute, I'm
Yeah.
working 15 days in a row of an average of 10 hours a day, and then I get 2 days off as a weekend, and I'm right back at it.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Yeah.
I
So
mean, it's the hamster wheel. But yeah,
right.
this is what I do. And if I'm good at it, they're going to be nice enough to give me more money, right?
Right.
That's the way we look at it. Um, I think,
But the job did pay well?
yes.
Did
I mean, it's a
mhm.
very good paying job if you're in the right place. Moderate sized cities like that, you can make a decent living for sure. Yeah.
And what were you doing for your health, for your mental, physical health at that time in
Well,
that
at the
position?
time,
Uh-huh.
if you'd
Uh-huh.
asked me right then, me living that age, I said, "Oh yeah, I work out. I do my thing. I go to the gym, multiple times a week." But I was just like everybody else, and no one believes this story because of where I'm at now. But I was that guy. I'd get in a mood where it's like, so I would drive to the gym, scan my card to get my attendance, and leave.
Wow, yeah. Uh-huh.
Everybody, like, I don't care who you are. If you have that insurance deal, you've done that at least once.
Ah, I gotcha. Uh-huh.
So I would have liked to have said yes. I work out a lot, da da da. But I'm going to be honest, and I should hold up. I think I got quick access to a photo. If I can hold it up to my screen here, hold on.
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is going to be pretty small, but I'll zoom in one side and then I'll scroll it over. This was
Mhm.
me about when I was working that funeral home job,
Oh,
right
wow.
there.
Uh-huh.
And then I
And
had a
do you
comparison.
remember what you weighed? What did you weigh?
That was about an average of 225 to 230.
Yeah.
Now,
Yep.
I'm a little further beyond this right now, but my body weight right now, now remember I said like almost 230 ish. My body weight right now is like 179, and there's the
Mhm.
difference. Yeah, like
Wow.
just,
Yeah.
I
And
mean,
that's over how much time?
those pictures are about
Mhm.
10 years apart.
10 years
I would
apart. And
say I
then
lost the bulk of my weight in the first year of me joining CrossFit in Mankato.
okay.
It was, I think down at the gym, I have a before and after where
Yep.
I had lost probably 35 or 40 pounds. And I think I have it marked at 8.5 months. That's very aggressive, but everything changed at once for me. So when I joined there and we started actually doing fitness and paying attention to what's going on, making better health choices, that kind of thing, the weight just dropped. And a lot of times for guys who are of that size but still have that physical capability and the muscle mass underneath, they typically lose fast when they make lots of changes at once. It's just
Yep.
not easy to
I
make all those changes.
Yeah, I have a similar experience actually. I was in that 230 range as well, right around in
Yeah.
there. And then I dropped down about 40, 50 pounds, I think in like 6, 7 months.
Yep.
If I look back, I have to look back on my records for sure, but like it did, like it was like that was like the first time I'm like, all right, I'm gonna intentionally, try and do something here. And
Right.
I was shocked. I was shocked at how quick it came off. then I hit that 180-ish mark,
Oh God.
and I was like, all right, I'm good, I'm fine. And then at one point, I was like, no, I don't want to be fine anymore. I want to keep going. And it, like, to go from 180 any much further is that, like, it's like that's where you hit that, like, exponential struggle.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like, to get that last little, then you have to be really dialed in. I think you got to be really focused. But it's a good thing. Like, it forces better habits. It forces just more, more desire. Like, you just have to want it.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But so, like, when you were back at the funeral home, at what point did you join the CrossFit gym? Was this late in your time at in Mankato there?
Yes.
Okay.
We're talking when I joined that CrossFit gym, I was
Yeah.
probably in my last 2 to 3 years of being at that funeral
Yeah.
home. And I'm
So, do you think it?
Oh,
Yep. Go ahead.
Go.
So do you think it was the weight loss? Do you think it was the focus on health that got you to be like, this is insanity, working at the funeral home? Yeah.
I'm going to give you a yes and a no on that. Because in a roundabout way, yes. I think what truly came, and this is kind of just a big point for me, and it's hard to even express how much I live by this. But when I joined that gym, so the cool thing was Brandy joined first. She goes over, I'm going to check this gym out. And I'm your typical guy. I say, oh, that looks stupid. Because we got to doubt everything, right? We're just raised that way. It's like, no, don't.
Well, if it's not our idea, it's not a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. But she's over there for a month. And now don't get me wrong. There's something behind, like, a little bit of your genetics and stuff and how your body's set up to burn fuel. If you start making small changes, some people are going to lose faster in some areas than others. Everybody's different. But Brandy started seeing some really great results really fast because of the hard work she was putting in. She showed up daily. She did that hour class, and that's all she did. And we were making small changes at home, like, okay, no more pop. We're not going to eat out anymore, that kind of stuff. That alone made huge differences as well. But when I saw after a month what she was doing, it was like, okay, I got to at least see what's going on over there, And then I met Ben Janicki, who was the owner of Cato CrossFit at the time. And this dude, he's like, I equated him to, like, gravity. You get sucked into his world, and he just makes you want to be there, be present, be friends with him, hang out with him all the time. Like,
well, that's you, Jeff. You've become that. Yes. You are now Ben.
Well,
right?
I appreciate that, because that was the mission all along. He became my mentor. But what he really taught me, and coming back full circle to your answer, what he really taught me was fail over and over and over. Because I remember my first workout, got my butt kicked. It's mostly metabolic, high heart rate stuff, pushing for long times. And I just, like, kind of defeated, you're like, geez, I didn't know I was that out of shape. I work out all the time, right? And I really didn't, but in my head I did. And then we had a workout, like, later that week. This is like my first week. And it comes across the board as, okay, we're going to do some heavy deadlifts, and we're going to do this. And then we're going to throw a run in there. And I'm like, sweet, I'm going to crush this. It's a short run. There's heavy lifting. And I'll be honest with you, I was like a few minutes into maybe a 12-minute workout, and I thought I was going to die. It's like, how are the weights kicking my butt? What I didn't understand at the time is you can create a metabolic, workout with weights, So I'm sitting here like, oh, I'm so strong, I'm going to just fly through this. No, that was not the case. But at the end of that one, I'll never forget, he walks up to me, and I'm laying on my back, like, destroyed. And he looks me right in the eye, and he says, well, that was an epic failure, huh? He had a beautiful way of putting it in perspective. and you never took it the wrong way because of how he said it and the way he looked at you, but he was brutal, like honest, hey, you royally messed that up, didn't you? And I'm like, yes, I did. What did I do wrong? And he says, you came in assuming that you're strong in ways that we haven't made you yet. He says, we need to build your capacity, not just your strength. And that clicked with me. So then I started taking off with it. And the failure thing is what really stuck. Out of all that talking and the workouts, I pushed to failure every single day from there on out. If I didn't fail, I wasn't learning. If I crushed a workout, I either made it too easy or I did something else wrong. And then I started applying that to life as well. And that's where it crept in and kind of put me on the track of, okay, I think I'm probably done with this lifestyle.
Okay.
It,
So I think you just answered my next question, but I was going to ask, like, what gave you the courage to take the leap and quit your job?
Yeah.
And is that basically the foundation of it,
It's
or
a
what would you say?
pairing. It would be 50% that and 50% family. So when I started at this place, and mind you, I'm not going to mention names. I don't know how far this will go, that kind of thing. I don't want anybody to feel bad. This is just my personal experience. But when I got hired on at this funeral home, basically it was said to me, hey, family's important. If things come up, we're going to work around it, medically, whatever. You need time, we're going to get you the time, long story. The time came where Brandy and I started having kids. And basically, she's pregnant. Fast forward to the end here. We go in, and we were approaching a weekend. I think it was a Friday night. I knew she was dang close, and it was a weekend for me to work, but it was a weekend where I was what's called fourth. That means there's 3 other directors ahead of me. So there basically have to be mass casualty for me to have to work. Well, I go in Saturday morning and I'm in my suit, doing my thing, but it's a low-key Saturday. I had just office work to do, finished it up pretty quick, had a few things to do downstairs. Brandy calls me. She says, it's time. She says, I'm in the backyard pacing. I said, well, how close are the contractions? And I don't remember at the time, far enough apart where I didn't have to panic, and I said, okay, I'm going to just lock things up. I'm going to finish this and I'll be home to pick you up. We'll go in nice and calm, So we do that. And I give my bosses the old heads up on the phone. I text them and I said I'd get a hold of them later. So I called and said, yes, we did make it in. We did have the baby. I'm going to stay. And, I've got all my work done, that kind of thing. Fast forward to Sunday night. I thought we were getting out, but we didn't. So I called my boss, and it was a combo. We had 2 bosses. So I called the one and I said, hey, this is what's going on. I'd like to stay with her. I'll take her home tomorrow midday. And then if you need me, I'll come in. Oh, no. Take Monday, and then we'll get you back Tuesday. So I do that. And I show up Tuesday morning, and the other boss comes up to me and says, hey, I adjusted your schedule. We took vacation for Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. And I don't know, man. That triggered me in a way. Like, I'm coming off a high. Like, we just had a baby, it's great. You guys told me you're going to take care of me, and I felt that way all weekend, And I walked straight back to the other office. I said, here's the deal. I said, you are going to go have a conversation. If you get me those days back, I will stay for 30 days. If you don't, I quit today.
Yeah.
And it was like, whoa, what's going on? And I explained the situation, and it was like 0 to 100 right now. And in my head, I felt so good. It was almost an excitement of the failure possibility. Like, man, I'm quitting a job that pays me thousands per year. Like, this is crazy. I made almost twice what Brandy did at the time.
Yeah.
And we just dumped my salary.
Yeah. But no, not only that, but you just had a child.
Exactly. So, and here's the beautiful part, Jake, and this is,
Uh-huh,
I,
uh-huh.
I won't ever forget this late either. I did this, and then they agreed they're giving my vacation back. Well, with what I had left and those days they gave back, I basically only had to work 2 weeks because I gave them
Okay.
30, but I had 15 days left. So I used that up, and then I went the 15 days and I was done. But that day that I quit, um, just kind of walking around like, a little nervous, but also on cloud nine. And I showed up at home, and Brandy looks at me and says, "Okay, so what are you going to do to fill the gap?"
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
there was no, how could you? This is the worst
Yeah.
timing ever. 100% supportive, but she knew. So I'll paint you a picture here. I would go to work in these last few years, and I would come home and basically get out of my suit. Some days, not even get out of my suit. I'd slide into a chair with just this blank expression. Like, it is, I could have done that job for my lifetime, but being that stressed and that many hours, you put so much emotion into your day, it's hard to have any left at the end of the day.
Right.
Where if you're not getting days off, you don't get to recharge those batteries and you don't get to show any of that emotion to your family. So I was like a
Yeah.
zombie, just sitting
Oh, for sure.
and
Hmm.
nothing to give back. And that is also one thing that triggered me. Is I saw that. You look in the mirror and it's like, who are you?
Yeah.
But Brandy was super supportive, and we
Hmm.
just started making calls and looking in the paper.
Do you?
And I'm telling you, I did what people say you can't do. They go, "Oh, there's no work out there. What am I going to do?" There's work out there. You just got to be willing to do something in the short term that you don't really want to do forever. The job I picked up, which I picked up in like 2 days, was a job running John Deere and Ford parts overnight. So I would get up at 2 in the morning, go to this hub, pick up a bunch of parts with my own truck, and I'd make a 150-mile loop dropping off parts at different stores because they need them every morning for vehicles and
Yeah.
tractors,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
So I
Yep.
dropped all these off. I'd go home, I'd get back in bed for a while, and then I'd work out. Well, the cool thing was that was it. That was all I was doing, and it was helping pay the bills. So then I got to spend my entire day with Ben Janicki.
Yeah.
Go to the gym, do class, hang out and do open gym. Then I'd just bug him about the business and kind of ask him questions. And this is where life started to change. Spending that much time with him and working on me as a person and getting back into a healthy body, healthy mindset. That where the whole thing just flipped on its head, and it's like, okay, work doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what I'm doing to make money as long as I am healthy.
Yeah.
That was,
Yeah. 100%. And so, do you mind sharing, like, about how much did you have in savings when you quit at your funeral home? Did you have a pretty sizable savings, or was
nothing.
it nothing, hardly
Nothing,
anything?
man.
All right.
Like,
And so it really was like, you find a freaking job, buddy. Wow. And
yeah.
so how long did you, oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, we basically at that point. Now, the nice thing was Brandy didn't have hardly any debt. She, by some miracle, knew exactly what she wanted to do out of high school, did it. She did a quick program for college to do it and took off working right away. And she was making decent money. She had no car payments. She barely had any student loan. Her student loans were paid off by the time she was 20. So, like, her debt was minimal. Mine was a little bigger. When I went through my divorce, I made a few not so great choices with finances. But that was a tough time for me. Personally, it was like I don't know, you call it a midlife crisis in your 20, 21, 22-year-old age.
Yeah. Oh, you can have a midlife crisis whenever. You
Yeah,
don't have to be
right. So
40.
I had
Yeah.
bought a
Yeah.
couple of motorcycles and stuff, and it was all on credit, of course, and whatever. But we didn't always, we weren't squirreling things away because we were 20, right? Like, what do you do in our early 20s? So basically, at that point, we didn't have a savings account. It was month to month living. But I'll tell you what, we went from, so if you got three chunks of income, mine was two of it. We went down to just Brandy's, and then I was just filling the gap with this cash job, like,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So,
How long did you do the John Deere thing where you were running parts?
um, I don't think I did that even for a full year. I want to say it was something like 6 to 8 months while I was looking for a better job. And I did find one, and there was a big piece to that as well. But one of my buddies who worked at the funeral home, he had quit not too long before me, and he was younger than me. His dad had bought into a business that repaired sidewalks. Kind of crazy thing. It's not like you're mud jacking or anything. He designed, or this company designed this saw that you bring in, and it's a flat edge. It's almost just like an angle grinder, but instead of the angle, it's just flat at the end. And they would use
Okay.
these diamond tip saws to, go in and measure the sidewalk. If there's enough of it left, they cut it off at a slope that's appropriate for walking, so there's no trip hazard. And they would go and have us as salesmen pitch this. So we would go demo a cut, show them how good it looks, how smooth it is, all that stuff, and that we could do it at a half reasonable cost because it was cheaper than mud jacking. It was cheaper than replacing the whole sidewalk, and
Sure.
provided a fairly long-term solution. Well, my job was purely just to go demo this and sell the service. So I would go in then and they'd say, okay, yes, we're going to do 40 city blocks. Well, cool thing was to get all those measurements, I had to walk 40 city blocks. So I'm getting my feet
Mm.
in. Not
Yeah.
doing much for hard work. You just kneel down, take a measurement, get back up, walk to the next one, and you mark them all with GPS. Then I send in a crew that does all the cutting for me, and I don't have to do anything else. I was truly just a salesman for the gig.
So have you always been like fitness minded, or like when did that develop in your life?
And I like to separate this in terms of the focus being on longevity versus the focus being on just fitness. When I was young, I got into lifting because of football. It was purely my coach said, hey, you got to get stronger. And this was at sixth grade. I had this being pushed on me. And I don't say it in a negative way. I love that it got pushed on me. I took it to heart and I lifted all the time. My mom worked for the school, so I had a key to the high school. I would go in at 5 a.m. and train
Wow.
and then shower
Hmm.
and get ready for school. And I trained by myself 4 out of the 5 days. Maybe one day I'd have a couple guys in there with me. And it
Wow.
just
And so from like sixth grade until all the way into your midlife, like that's kind of what you were focused on.
correct. But it was
And
only ever lifting, and I never had anyone to instruct me on any of it. So, I'm in there making my own mistakes, probably not, some of the things not as good as they should have been, form, technique, that kind of stuff. But, I did what I knew at the time, and it was just, okay, lift hard, be intense about it, and see what you can do. But the recovery wasn't there, technique wasn't there, different modalities weren't there, so it was the same
right,
stuff over and over,
right.
that kind
Yeah.
of thing.
So when did it really shift into a longevity mindset?
That probably came, I would say, about 2 years into opening our place.
Okay.
Even
So then,
into opening our place, I wasn't of that mindset yet. I was of the
okay.
mindset of, okay, how do we make a healthy body? How do we change somebody? How do we get them to lose fat, to build muscle, to focus on living healthy right now? Now was the key. Like, I was focused on making changes so people could see it and be like, yes, this is
Right,
the place that helped me get this result, and da da da.
right,
A
right.
couple years into
So
that, though, I really figured out that, okay, this doesn't need to be about now. This needs to be about, how do I take a body that maybe is never going to have abs, maybe is never going to feel like they're the fittest person in the room, but get them to go to the doctor and their doctor say, what are you doing? Your
nice.
markers
Yeah.
are fantastic.
Mhm.
That's where the shift came in for that.
So, how many years between the funeral home and opening your own gym then? And how many jobs were in between there?
Fortunately, it was just the two
Uh-huh.
jobs. It was
Just the
the
two jobs.
delivery
Yep.
job, and then it was that
Uh-huh.
concrete job. Delivery was like 6 to 8 months. And then the
Yeah.
concrete job, I'm not going to nail this. I want to say it was almost a couple years. And
Okay.
that was a cool piece of my story as well. So I'll take a second here. The guy that owned this, so he had lost his wife fairly young to cancer, and he had made millions off of different enterprises he had run. So he's just kind of looking for something to do, something to keep him busy. So he bought this basically kind of as a gift for his kid, but to keep him busy too. And his kid was the one who wrote me in because that kid was the one who worked with me at the funeral home. Now, I was working. Honestly, I had his dad tell me, "You're probably our best salesman, but don't tell my son." Like,
Mhm.
and I honestly, it was like, okay, no, this is cool, but I know he does a better job than me. And he said, "No, you're doing very well." He said, "But we need to have a dinner." He says, "I want to talk to you about a couple things." And he invites Brandy and I up. And mind you, at the time, we don't go out to eat. Not now, not because so much like we're afraid of eating out with health, nutrition, that kind of thing. We literally can't afford it. We're like, can't eat out. We need to buy groceries, prep our own food, whatever. Well, he takes us out to eat and sits us down and says, "Hey, I see your passion. I know you want to open a gym," because I had talked about it. And at the time, it was okay, we're going to open this, but Brandy's going to run it. I'm going to help with it while I still do my sales gig. And he looked at me square in the eye and he says, "You can't." And I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He says, "You can be great at what we're doing now." He said, "You already do a fantastic job." He says, "But we can get you to a level where you never have to worry about money again."
Uh-huh.
But if this is your dream, he said, "I want you tonight to quit and you go and do this dream." And then he slides me a check for $3,000. He says, "This is a check that'll cover your entire first year's affiliate fees to be a CrossFit gym."
Oh, wow.
And I mean, it still makes me emotional.
Yeah,
That
I
was
bet.
that was a big trigger point for me of, you know, somebody believed in me.
Yeah.
One, they saw the passion that was there. Um, and he's just willing to push me towards that goal, that dream. And there's still, I talked earlier about the failure thing and like, okay, I can just quit this job, it's okay. But I still had the fear, working for him. If that guy was willing to do that for me, do I want to leave that job? This is a guy that's obviously going to take care of me anytime I need it. So, and he's asking like, "Okay, this is it, you decide right here at this dinner." what's
Oh, yeah.
what's the rest of your life going to be? You're going to work for me and we're going
Yeah.
to make you rich, wealthy, uh or you're going to chase that dream and try to do it on your own.
The
And
universe has a way of putting these tests in front of
yeah,
people all the time. And
absolutely.
like the universe has a way of like, you better be damn sure you want this.
Yep. And
Right?
I tell you what, we took
Uh-huh.
that check. I mean, I looked at Brandy, she, let's do it. And at this point, we had no plans. So here again, kind of like having no savings, no this, no that. We made that decision right there, and I was done. Like I had no more work. I had to get on a plane.
Mhm.
So
Wow.
as soon as we got home that night, I sat down and I wrote up an entire business plan. Uh, I put as much detail into it as I could without knowing how to do that stuff because I knew I wasn't going to be able to do it on my own. Then I started doing the research on geographically where we're going to put this place. We want to
Oh,
be kind of
wow.
close to some family, but we need a place that's going to be able to support this type of facility. So we're talking minimum 10,000 people. Could it be done somewhere smaller? Yes. But for the growth we wanted to see over time, we wanted a little bigger. And New Ulm popped up because it was close to her folks. her folks lived at the time in North Redwood, and now they're just a hair closer. They're north of Franklin now. But then I started, okay, where can we put a facility? So I started making phone calls. Nothing. There's nothing out there, talked to 6 different realtors, and we don't have a building like that. This isn't going to work. That's not going to work. So you're getting a little defeated, but in the meantime, I was also looking up financing. Luckily I connected with Randy Schrader from Franz and Bank. The dude, like, I don't know what he saw in me, but he bent over backwards. He said, now our bank can't afford to give you a loan for what you want. But he said, there's a program out there that I will hook you up with. He said, through Brown County, it's a small economic development center. We partner with them. They take half the loan on at basically no interest, and you pay them off first. And then once they're paid off, you start paying our half off at X interest. And he said, that way the bank's only on the hook for half of it if you default. I said, well, sounds great. There's no downside, right?
Yeah.
And he says, no. He said, honestly, there really isn't, but you have to go pitch your business to the Brown County the Economic Development Group. I said, okay, what's it going to be? A round table, a few guys, whatever. I went to this thing and it was like 12 old men, they'd made their money off farming and business and this and that. And here I am without a dime in my pocket, But luckily we pitched it, they approved. And in the meantime, I had gotten a phone call from one of my realtors I had talked to saying, hey, I don't know for sure, but she said, I know a guy that's got a building sitting mostly empty. He just doesn't have it for sale. And that was Adam Reinhardt, owns AR Construction, multi-million-dollar business, And I called him up right away. He says, I gotta meet you. He won't agree to anything. He wouldn't even talk any details on the phone. So I showed up in person, and we talked for about an hour, and she showed me the space. He says, I can do this, and we struck a deal. Man, I've been there ever since. He's made it so hard to leave. He's such a good landlord. It's like, I recently looked at other buildings, and he talked me into staying. He's like, well, we'll do this and this, and we'll make sure that you have this. And renting is not a bad thing when you've got a guy who's willing to go at half the normal cost of what rental space is going for.
Yeah. No, but that's incredible. I mean, what I find just so fascinating is all the key people just presented themselves in the key moments. And I think that's one of the blockages that people have when they're trying to dream up this new life, is like, well, how are all these things going to happen?
Right.
And the reality is like, you don't necessarily have to have all the answers at the moment that you start. Like they kind of reveal themselves along the journey.
Yeah.
So like, let's, before we finish here, I just want to make sure we understand like what your life is like today, compared to what it was, when you were kind of at your rock bottom moment in the funeral home, and like even like your daily routine. Like, what's your morning routine like now compared to what it was like when you were, kind of just doing your 9 to 5 thing, or was much worse than that? But yeah.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, if I can keep this, like, we still got plenty of time yet, but I'll try to keep this part short. So like my daily is waking up. And I mean, when I say wake up, I'm talking, 3:50 in the morning. So about 3:50, wake up, do some breakfast quietly.
Wait, do you hit the snooze button ever, or do you just pop right out of bed?
Not once, never.
No.
Most of the time I wake up on my own, but I also use a haptic alarm. So I wear a Whoop strap. The haptic alarm is a nice little light vibration, and it just kind of gently wakes you up. And, I see you've got some blocking glasses on. Normally I wear that kind of stuff too. Are those blue blocking or not?
They are. There's some cheap readers on Amazon, but they did claim to have. They did claim to have like
they're blue blocking. See, mine, I've got a really dark red pair that block it all out. But to my point though, sleep hygiene is important. So I make sure that
Yeah.
I get a good
Yep.
night's sleep. But I'm up by 3:50, do breakfast. I like that quiet and kind of dark still. I don't want to shock my eyes awake with all the bright lights and stuff until the sun's up, honestly. And then I'll quietly sneak out and head down to the gym. I'm usually there a little before, right at 4:30. I like to be able to quietly set up my day, get my coffee made, just slowly get things ready so I'm not in any kind of panic mode. Nobody's really there to bother my morning thoughts. I'm just kind of thinking about, okay, what's on the checklist today? The most important urgent things, the ones that aren't so urgent but are still important. The important but not urgent. I have a 4-box system I use to just kind of go about my day. And then as I have that list prepared, then I kind of just start pacing the gym, thinking, okay, this is the order I'm going to do things. Here's how I'm going to run my class today. These are the stretches I'm going to use.
Wait,
things.
what did you say? You have a 4-box system? What is that?
Yeah. So what I do is I put in the middle the date of the week, and that's week of this week. Now there's a box here, 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 and here. The box up top, which I label box 1, that is important and urgent. Those are things that need to be done either that day or at least that week. The next box over is important but not urgent, meaning it'll still be done that week, but it can be put on the back shelf until I get my first box done. The box on the bottom left, that one is urgent but not important. Now, here's a big difference: is there are things that need to be done right away, but if they have to take a backseat, they absolutely can. It'd be things like, oh, I got to get a tire fixed. Yes, that does need to be taken care of right now, but if it's still holding a little air, is it really that important? And then the bottom right-hand corner is, if I get everything else done, what else would be helpful to have done right now? It's not important and not urgent. That's a system that I've been using for a while now that I really love. It puts into perspective the things that are important to you also, because it's not just business. You can put in there time with family, making your kid's soccer game, which I love, making Haley's cheer, that goes in the important boxes as well. Sometimes those things don't make the urgent box, but they definitely make the important box, just because that's part of my family. Or part of my life is my family, and another part for me is always fitness. Some people will put that in box 3. That's a box 1 to me. It's got to be every day, and I would say, like, that's something that I kind of live my life by, is consistency over perfection. If I consistently show up, if I do this every day, it's habit, almost to the point where you could kind of label it addiction, but in a good way. If you get yourself to that point where you almost feel addicted to the fitness part, then there's no question that you're going to do it.
Yeah.
It's like
100%.
You're going to.
I've been on both sides of the equation of that, where it's been, where, like, I feel like everybody goes through this in most habit creations, but it's like one of those, like, all right, at some point you at some point it hits you in life, like, or it should. You got to figure out your fitness, you got to figure out your health, and for me, what it was like, all right, everybody always has there's never enough time, right? Everybody always has the time excuse. Well, if you want to just throw that time excuse out the window, you say, look, I'm going to dedicate 10 minutes every morning to something like treadmill or whatever it is. Yep. Just something, 10 minutes every day. And then you do that for long enough, and it does. It's like, if you don't have it, you notice it. And it does. It feels way more like an addiction, but it's something that I absolutely thrive on as well. It's like, I want to be addicted to that, right?
Exactly. And that's a good way to put that.
Yeah.
But then, honestly, beyond that, jumping back into the timeline thing. So once I've got my box kind of straightened out in my head, I spend the last few minutes before people start showing up prepping for class, making sure that my head is right. Like, hey, this is the flow. This is what we're going to do. So-and-so is probably going to show up, and I'm going to have to modify this, if anybody's got injuries, that kind of thing. I try to think about what could come up that day. And get classes rolling. We 5 to 6 a.m. Once 6 a.m. is done, usually Brandy's got the kids in there already, and I'll get them ready for getting on the bus. I make sure they get on the bus by 7:30, and then I start training. Training goes for at least 2 hours. That includes good warm up, different accessories, weightlifting. Some days I do intense workouts. Some days I don't do a workout at all. It's just lifting. It just depends on the day and the program I'm in. Once that's done, I run home and I do post workout food, make sure I fuel up. As soon as I eat, I'm either on this walking pad or I take the dog for a walk for at least 2 miles. Um, if I am short on time, that walk is a minimum of 10 minutes. I got to get 10 minutes in after eating that big post workout meal just to get the digestion moving, make sure I feel good throughout the day. When that's done, I am typically getting a few things ready. If it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I have to make sure I'm ready to head back to the gym before 11:30. Get that noon class in, and then after noon, if I don't already have all my food prepped, I'll run home and I'll prep my next 3 meals, take them back with me to the gym, and I'll do office work until classes start at 3:30. I run 3:30, 4:30, 5:30. Usually during the like 5 o'clock hour, I'm eating my last meal of the day. And I just kind of wait till like the workout's going or they're doing the warm up or something where, they don't have a lot of questions. And then at the end of that last class, kind of get things cleaned up, make sure if I need machines for the next day, they're put out. And then I lock up and head home. Get at least an hour of family time in and kind of get out the blue light blocking glasses, make sure those are on for the end of the day. I don't eat anymore and I don't drink anymore past getting home. And then just slowly get ready for bed. Same routine every night to make sure the sleep hygiene's on point. If you're not sleeping well, nothing else is going to go well. So
Right.
it's just kind of rinse, repeat every day. So,
Wow. That's incredible. So, when you were at the funeral home, did you do anything for mental preparation, like at the start of your day, or was it just did you just kind of let the day come flooding at you?
in the beginning, I would like to say that yes, I would prepare for my days. Towards about 4 or 5 years in, and then all the way to the end, it was more swing your legs out of bed and throw your face in your hands like
Uh-huh.
another day.
Uh-huh.
This is going to be, and that's terrible. You spend 5 years thinking to yourself every morning, oh man, another day here. And I think that's the point, like, and you're probably trying to get this across, but as I read through your questions here and I think about the conversation we're having, don't live your life that way. I don't care if you do fail. I don't care if you lose your house. I mean, what do you do? Like, you have a responsibility, a core responsibility to try to take care of your family. You got kids, you got a spouse. Yes, but not at the expense of you being their father, their husband. I was not a good husband when I was a funeral director. It's not that I didn't want to be, it's not that I didn't love Brandy. To me, it's almost that pedestal thing. Like I want to put her on a pedestal, even though I know that's not mentally the right thing to do. I always want to take care of her. I want to make her feel like she is the most important person in the world to me because she is. But I just wasn't able to show her all of that because of the
Right.
person I had become. And that was 100%
Yeah.
on me. And if I'm not willing to take chances to make me a better person, it wouldn't matter if I made $1 million a year or if I made $10,000 a year. She's going to love me no matter what. So if I can't reciprocate that love and make her feel that, what's the point of making all that money?
Right. Right. 100%.
Luckily,
And
we've gotten to a place where we're fairly comfortable and I feel those ways. Like I can emotionally communicate with her where before I couldn't, and now it's just like, oh, so much better. It's hard to explain,
yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the very first step though is just personal responsibility, taking responsibility for your own situation, for your own actions, for your own thoughts, all of those things. You have to tell yourself, this is me. This is not the world doing this to me. I'm
Yep.
making these choices. I'm not a victim of anything here. And so like I always like I swear I come back to that very first realization that needs to take place, I think. And
Yeah.
if you're stuck in that victim mindset, you're not moving.
Yes. It is very hard. And everybody gets into that zone. I also, one of my favorite things about coaching at the gym, um, you become a little bit of everything. So by running that business by myself, I've learned a lot. Now, some days I'm janitor, some days I'm the office manager. I am coach every day, but some days I'm a therapist. I'm a physical therapist. I mean, like
Right.
I am so many pieces to so many people. And I love that I can be that. So it pushes me to educate myself in ways that can help them. Brandy and I have done more research on physical therapy and mental therapy in the last decade than anything else, even probably more so than the actual fitness itself. The fitness is always going to be evolving. The mental clarity, the mental part of what we do,
Yeah.
that's huge. Like that's
It's infinite.
you know,
It's completely infinite. Yeah, it's
yes,
like it's one of those things where there's just you can never stop learning about something, about the mental
correct.
side of those
So
things. Yeah.
that's been huge for me is like, okay, what can I do to help this person because they're obviously struggling, and someone that
Yeah.
walks in,
Yeah.
and this is my favorite thing now. I've been doing this for years. Someone will walk in and they're inherently negative, right? So like
Yeah.
everything, how's the morning going? Oh, it's cold out. Well,
Right.
the weekend. Oh, we were swamped. It's like everything's negative. And so my favorite thing to do is just, like if I ask about their weekend and we were too busy, it's like, oh, but you got to spend the time with your family, right? You were at your kid's game and you got to do this together. How was the car ride home? You guys got to talk, whatever. And I try to put that positive spin on it. And I almost kind of like force them into that channel. It's like
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
you can just rub somebody with enough positivity in a nice, gentle way, you start to see changes, and
Yeah.
it's truly like, okay, think of it in terms of someone who swears a lot.
Hmm.
We all have that friend who's,
Hmm.
got the F bombs all the time and using every other swear word in the book. And if you're around them enough, you start doing it. You pick it up a little bit. Well, I like to do that on the positive side where it's like,
Right.
okay, can we influence them to have a more positive mindset, to think like, oh, it was sunny while we were at the game. Oh, I did get to talk to my kid about how they felt about that afterwards in the car ride home that took an hour and a half, like just little things. And eventually it takes hold. But I'll tell you what, it's not easy. There are
Yeah.
days where
Yeah.
I am like, come on, guys, somebody have something positive to say. Like,
Mhm.
it does
Yeah.
get hard because when you get in that mode of you have a little bit of a down day, whatever, you want somebody to recharge you, and
Right.
and that's where the
Right.
partner comes in. That's where Brand
Yeah.
helps me out. She's my constant.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just truly believe that, it's people like you in the world who are far more effective at improving people's lives than the entire field of psychiatry, to be honest. Like, psychiatrists, like they go through these 8 years of training and like and their first go-to is like, here, take some drugs
Yeah,
and like and I'm somebody with a degree in psychology, and I've taken a complete 180 on my view of the entire field. It's like, no, like don't prescribe drugs. Like, figure out what the hell is going on with their lives and fix their damn life.
yeah,
You know what I mean? Don't try to make them feel good. Like, who cares what they feel like if you're feeling shitty for a reason? You know what I mean?
yeah. You almost
Sorry, I just
you
swore.
you need those. No, that doesn't offend
Yep.
me at all. Man, the stuff I hear every day. But you need those feelings. And to your point, I think it's our systems in as a whole, because like jump out of the psychiatry end of it, go back into the health side for a second, and let's talk doctors. I know some amazing doctors. I know some doctors right now that truly are on board with what we're doing with the health and fitness. But I also know some very ignorant doctors. Now, I don't say that in a connotating way. I don't say that in a disrespectful way. Ignorant to the source just means they don't know any better. And
Right. So
basically,
how do you get them to see the light? How do you get those ignorant people to understand our
that's
perspectives? Hmm.
very hard because these people, and when I say that, it's doctors of pretty much any walk of life. They've gone through medical school and they inherently believe that they are now superior.
Right.
But they're superior, which is probably appropriate. They've got a ton of education. They've been taught this, this, this. They know the body, whatever. They've been taught, to your point, to push drugs. It's not okay. Let's take a look at your diet. How do you eat? And when I say diet, I don't like people to get confused with, oh, you're on a diet plan. Diet in
Right.
terms of what do you eat daily? What's your normal consumption? I have literally, Brandy and I have worked with clients that come to us frustrated. Hey, I've been to the doc for this, and they got me on this medication and that medication. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a doctor, and I will never tell someone that. And I will never tell them, hey, I think you should drop all those meds and do this. What I ask is for that person to go to their doctor and say, hey, I'd like to try a more holistic approach to this. Is it okay if I stop this, this, and this medication and try this, this, and this for a short term? And then when they've got their approval, we start trying to fix those things with food. Not everybody can and should eat the same things. We all want to be on a plan that works the best for our bodies. Where Brandy, when she's in a cut and getting ready for a bodybuilding show, she can absorb carbs like a monster. Like I've never seen this before in my life. She can eat more carbs than I can, and I outweigh her by far. Uh, when I eat carbs, and I'm talking for her like rice, sourdough, all the good starchy stuff, right? When I eat carbs, if I eat those starchy carbs, I tend to blow up a little bit. Like my tissues inflame, and I will put on weight faster, not the good kind. Where if I switch and I go more fructose based, so now I'm eating fruits and honeys and a lot of it. I mean like hundreds of grams a day of fruit. Uh, my body burns that fuel source very fast. And it's cool to see because there are so many tests out there you can do to prove how your body burns and how to be most effective. You go
Name one. Like, are you talking like 23andMe type thing, or? Uh-huh.
We actually went to Mankato and got the DEXA scan done. So DEXA is basically a system where you're going to lay on a table. They're going to do like a low dose MRI on you. So they've got an arm that goes over your body, comes back, the table moves, it goes over, it scans you in thirds. But as long as you don't move, it gives you a good picture of your bone density, your visceral fat, your subcutaneous fat, which are very different things. If people start talking about those things, oh, you can spot loss belly fat, this and that. Visceral fat does not respond sorry, I lost my word there. It's not going to respond the same way that subcutaneous fat does. Subcutaneous is the fat that's in our arms, in our chest, in our love handles. Visceral fat is the fat that surrounds our organs. Now, that fat is purely affected by stressors, hormones, cortisol levels. That's the fat we really should worry about. Now, I don't want to carry a ton of subcutaneous fat. One, it's not healthy. And two, I don't like the image it gives me. But the visceral fat, if you're high stressed, even in the state I'm in, the fitness level, if I've got a high level of visceral fat, I have a much higher chance of having a heart attack or a stroke or those types of things. So then we need to go back and, okay, how do we fix that? And can you fix that with food? Absolutely. But you have to be willing to do the work. There are things like, okay, let's have you eat bitters. Let's have you make sure you do coconut oil in your coffee in the morning to help with motility. There are lots of little things that you can jump on, but it gets hard where people are like, oh, can I do this every day? Where they ask us, how do you do it? And I have to literally say, Brandy and I made a few steps a year for the last 14 years.
Yes. Yeah.
We didn't do it all in 10 days. It's that whole, you get a new client and in 2 weeks they're saying, why am I not buff and low fat already? Because you spent
Yeah.
20 years eating the opposite.
Right. It's so true.
So,
Well, and as you know, I went through nutrition coaching with Brandon, and we it absolutely loved it. It just opened our brains, our minds to like, uh, just how much like food impacts your feelings, if it impacts your sleep, it impacts your everything. And but at the end of the day, it's habit creation, right? Like that's
yes.
the key skill. The key skill that you have to learn is not only do you have to create new habits, you have to learn to stop doing old habits that you've picked up
Yep.
on for 20, 30, 40 years or whatever it may be.
And that's why
Um,
it's so hard.
yeah, exactly. Okay, I'm gonna wrap this up because I know you've got other things going on. But like okay, so I've got two questions left. Number one, do
Yeah.
you have a personal mantra?
I would say that definitely goes back to that consistency over perfection. That's something I preach almost daily, and anybody who asks me, that's the answer they're going to get. And the reason I give that one is if you do something every day, it doesn't matter if it's perfect. If you do it every day, it will become perfect with enough time. It's no different than me teaching you how to do a squat clean. If you do a crappy one every day for the first couple weeks, you're at least doing them and getting the motions down, like we're moving through it. We start fixing a little piece at a time, and all of a sudden, after 10,000 reps, you look like a professional Olympic lifter. But it takes the 10,000 reps. It's no different than sleep or your food, no different than brushing your teeth. We all brush our teeth, right? We get up, we brush our teeth, or we go before bed, or whatever your routine is. You brush your teeth. You have to make the choices you want to make. So the food choices, the lifestyle choices, you have to make them as automatic as brushing
Yeah,
your teeth. So
right.
consistency over perfection
No, I
definitely
love
is.
it. Love it. Okay, final question. What are you most grateful for in your new life here? As like, what do you like post transformation? Like, um, what brings? What are you most grateful for?
Oh boy.
Hmm.
There is
Hmm.
so much. I
Hmm.
am probably going to say, there are things that I would like to say about myself, but I would say the biggest thing I'm grateful for is Brandy.
Hmm.
There's a lot of things in my life that are not even on topic that she has quote unquote fixed for me. But when I say that, a lot of the work was done by me, but because of her and for her. It's not that there was ever any fear she'd leave me or anything like that. She makes me, and as corny as this sounds, she makes me want to be better every single day, every
Yeah.
minute of every day.
Yeah.
It's just, that's just the way it is. I
No.
would be lost without her.
Oh, that's a great answer. I mean, I feel the exact same way with Kylie and my wife, and it is it's the cornerstone of a healthy marriage, healthy relationship, and then like it kind of starts this wheel spinning in your life, and it has this snowball effect everywhere with your kids, with your business, with your work, with your community. Everything just kind of starts the ball rolling right there in that tiny little union. Yeah.
Yep.
Hmm. But well, thank you so much, Jeff. This has been an absolute honor to hear your thoughts, to pick your brain. I love hearing the transformation story that you have, and now obviously you have a very successful gym in New Ulm, Minnesota, that's doing well. What's next for you? What's coming up in the future?
Actually, I'm pretty excited. We're at another pivot point. This
Nice.
is kind of what this thing is about. We're at one of those junctures where we're gonna throw everything up in the wind again. I'm not leaving. We are looking to expand. I want to make the gym bigger. I want to offer more than what we offer. I want to offer more than just classes, is what I'm getting at. So we're looking at, okay, how do we expand the gym in a way that's going to fit the community's needs, not just for more class members, but also for people who want to just do their own thing, but learn. So our idea is we're going to probably about double the size of the gym, and we're going to fill that other side with specialty items, meaning it's not going to be your 24-hour joint. You go in with all the selectorized machines where they have the plate stacks and the pins and everything, and you just hop on and kind of look at a picture. Okay, I think this is how I do it. We're going to set it up almost along the lines of like a bodybuilding gym. So there will be lots of plate loaded machines where you load physical plates on it. So you can choose actual individual weights. Most of these machines will have capacities of 1,000 pounds plus, where most of your selectorized are capped at 200 to 300. We're going to specialize in bringing people into that side and not cutting them loose. We're going to say, okay, join here. You are going to go through a 1, 2, or 3 day intro period where we show you the machines. We tell you how it should feel. We instruct you how to do each one. The plan is we're going to come up with some barcodes because it's pretty easy to make those anymore. And each barcode is going to link to a video of either Brandy or I demonstrating the machine. And it's going to be just cool little 10 to 20 second clips of us kind of being a little goofy, but also very serious on how this machine works, what you're targeting, how it should feel. If you're not feeling this, come find us. And we want to be very present in that. I don't want it to be a place where you come in, you kind of, okay, what am I going to do today? You know, looking around. I want people to have access to a plan. So I'm also going to program for it. We're going to have a system in place that when you join, just like our classes, you'll be able to pull up an app and it'll say, if you need a workout today and you want legs, back, bicep, whatever, you can click on that and it's going to give you a list of exercises to do and it'll tell you how long it'll take and you'll be able to do it all, get out the door and be done. So it's exciting stuff.
Well, no, I'm excited for you, and I know you guys do amazing things at your gym, New Ulm Fitness, correct?
Yep.
No, I'm so grateful to hear your story, Jeff, and thank you so much for joining the podcast. Hey, thanks for listening. I hope you got some value out of hearing Jeff Toomer's story. If you want to find out more about us and our mission, check out our website at brilliantlifejourney.com.